Yeah?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Margaret, would you be willing to lead us in the salute to the flag?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So we have a couple of dedications tonight. One is for, excuse me if I mispronounce any of these names. One is for Barry Hadis, who recently passed, but was very passionate and a strong advocate for the Conservation Advisory Commission. And he devoted a lot of his time and effort into working with that commission, and Margaret will speak later on his behalf. We'd also like to dedicate it to the election coordinators and inspectors, which include Pat Knapp, Karen Mosier, Doreen Brown, Sue Tracy, J.R. Tracy, Greg Arendt, Charles Buys, Diane Lyons, Ira Dunn, Ethan DeMary. And for folks that don't know, they get up at an ungodly hour and they leave at an ungodly hour and they barely eat. But it's a great dedication to the civic duty and civic service, so we appreciate all the time. And then lastly, I just want to recognize that Monday was Veterans Day, and I want to recognize all of the veterans and the veterans family and the local community, but also across the United States. Mr. Roll call.
Wendy Burton is absent. Julie Dakota.
Here.
Eric Hames.
Present.
Nathan LaVirtue.
Here.
Theodore Sikor.
Here.
You should use your full name.
Yeah, Theodore Eagleson Secor.
That's right.
So I make a motion to approve the agenda, but I have one modification. After item 1, revised number 2 is going to be Margaret Fallon speaking.
And Ed is not here yet.
Correct. So we may move that one.
Maybe.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, Teddy, you want to start with your reports?
Absolutely. So first up is the Haunted Fortress. The season is over, and at the end of the year, if you did not see Wendy Burton's newsletter, the Haunted Fortress pulled in $24,293. Every single
Which
night.
was above budget.
It was above budget, yes, and we far and exceeded last year because we only lost one day this year to rain. Last year we lost 1/3 of all days to rain.
Yeah, so.
And every day this year, except the first weekend, I want to say we had 200 people just packed in like sardines, and we were there, and it went smoothly. It was great. So, having said that, cleanup and winterization is also finished. Everything's away. Parade of Lights, though, is the next event, and the Haunted Fortress is planning on being at the Parade of Lights in Stanford and possibly Pine Plains. Our next meeting is also December 4th at 6 p.m. Second, the ZBA. They had a meeting just last night. First order of business was a review of a proposed variance for a property at 5 Millis Lane. A public hearing is to be held on the matter in December, with site visits to be conducted by the ZBA members. Further, a public hearing was held last night regarding a stop work order issued by Code Enforcement Officer Don Smith, dated May 7, 2023, to Rathjens Landscaping with comment given by neighbors. The public hearing is open to comment submission until 8 days before the next meeting. That meeting is December 11th at 7:30. Also, the CSC had a meeting last month, and our next meeting is this Monday coming up. The first order of business was a roundtable conversation where we had discussed aspects of the revision of the ADU law, passing the Stanford resolution against the Iroquois pipeline expansion, and we are moving forward with our composting program data. Overwhelmingly, We did get some responses, but people said, we don't think there's a necessity for a composting program in Stanford. A lot of people do composting at home. They want educational resources about how to better compost, how to really make the most out of what they have at home. It just doesn't seem efficient to make a centralized program. So right now we're exploring educational resources for people at home. And finally, we are also welcoming a new member to the Climate Smart Communities Task Force, Andrew Riccio, which again, that will finally happen November 18th at 6 p.m. Our regular meeting is at 6:30. 6 p.m. is where the committee will discuss technical matters and getting materials together. That's all.
Thank you, Jettie.
Yes, good evening. The planning board met on October 30th. There were 3 items of business. The first item of business was a minor subdivision at Blue Sky Farm. Kirk Horton presented. This property is on the north side of Huns Lake Road, south of Olen Road. It is a 2-lot subdivision dividing 73.445 acres into a 59.108 acre and a 14.337 acre lot. There was a motion to classify by the planning board, which was approved. There will be a public hearing at the next meeting on November 20th for this minor subdivision. The second item of business was a site plan approval for the owner, Benjamin Rathjen, at 6102 Route 82, Stanfordville, New York. This property involves the building of a pole barn with office and bathrooms, as well as other structures for an outdoor retail business. The planning board went over the site plan with Ben, and he had to do some additions to the site plan in accordance with the site plan checklist, and then he's going to have to resubmit. One of the things that was needed was a parking layout on the site plan. The next item of business was a major subdivision. Property owner is a Guy Barriolet. Property is at 729 Cold Spring Road in Stanfordville. This is a 12-lot subdivision, 1 lot for a horse farm, 11 lots residential. There was some back and forth between the owner and the planning board about the road access situation, whether it would be private or public. So the planning board decided that the town's engineer should speak to the owner's engineer and that they should work this out. There was also supposed to be a pre-application conference, but that got moved to November, so nothing to report there. The last item of business that was important was a discussion of local law number 2, which is the moratorium of battery storage and wind energy, and the planning board had no additional comments. The next planning board meeting is next Wednesday. I'll be attending. That's November 20th.
Thank you, Eric. You want to go, or do you want to go all at once?
No, you go ahead.
Okay. That way you can just keep talking.
I got you.
So I'll give a report for the Recreation Committee. They will continue their talks on the pavilion rental next month. The individual that was doing some of the research for that was not there last night. But for folks that are curious about it, the pavilion was rented every weekend last year, or this past year. And they're looking at revising the rules to modernize it a little bit, but then also updating the fees to be a little bit more on par with the surrounding area. There was a lot more discussion about the Haunted Fortress, but also on trunk or treat. So there were 25 trunks, but there were 250 kids. And the reason we know that is there was an individual that brought full-size candy bars, and they had brought 200 of them, and they ran out. And they were giving out other candy in that pack. So there was a lot of discussion on how to try and alter that so that we can get more trunks to accommodate that many kids. So it was a great turnout on one side, but not necessarily on the other. There was a discussion around some other fall and winter activities they can do. There is a save the date that I want to announce, and I'm not going to go into too much detail because it's kind of an exciting, interesting thing. So save January 24th, and this is mostly geared towards children, but it is called the Winter Glow Party, and it will be at the town hall. So that will be an interesting event that there'll be more about. They didn't want me to disclose too much. They will be doing recipes for kids again in February, March, and April. They were excited that the summer camp budget passed. They are going to now start working in January on staffing that. They may likely need to look for a new assistant director because the current one actually wants to become the camp director, which is great. So Lauren was really excited about that. And the first week of camp will be the first week after 4th of July week. That's it.
Awesome. Okay. The CAC's meeting last month was a dedication to Barry Haydas, which Margaret will talk about shortly. So there wasn't really a normal course of business. Minutes were not approved at that meeting for August, although they were circulated prior to that. The other thing to note was that Curtis DeVito accepted the appointmentship, appointance. Appointment. Thank you very much. Whew. Appointment to become the chair of the CAC, and so he accepted that happily. The next meeting is next Wednesday, the 20th as well.
Thank you.
I will read the are we
Yes,
done?
yeah, that's
okay.
all the liaison reports, so then Julia's going to share the supervisor reports and the financials.
Yes, so Wendy shared with me the supervisor's report to read tonight. I'm going to read this in first person because this is how she wrote it. I sent out 2 payroll verification notices as well as the bank reconciliation and supervisor's report. The 2024 budget is holding very well, and we are at our projected revenues. In December, we will be receiving $52,794 from the county for mortgage tax, which will bring us just shy of a $2,000 shortfall, which we can easily make up for from other revenue lines. Lowering of mortgage rates should be helpful for 2025 mortgage tax revenues. We received $12,934 for third quarter cable franchise revenues, which put us on target for accruing for the rest of the year. The court has already exceeded its revenue projection by $14,500. Thank you to Conic State Parkway. I put that one in. The biggest payment we are waiting is from the New York State for the CHIPS money our highway department has put in for.
Still.
It's usually pretty late.
Yeah.
That's the financials. The zoning commission met last month to finalize thoughts on the right to farm ordinance. On Tuesday, it will be interviewing a consultant that the town has worked with before, Nina Peak. Event venues may also be discussed, as we have had 1 or 2 residents who have inquired about renting out their properties for things like weddings or parties, things like that. We're still looking for volunteers to flesh out the Haunted Fortress Committee. Please think about letting your inner creative witches and warlocks loose and join this amazing group of volunteers. And finally, the Salt Point Bridge is open ahead of schedule, as is Route 82. And I think we've all seen a lot of traffic on our roads as a result of those. And that is it.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
So we'll move to privilege of the floor. So for this, we ask you just share your name and address with Rita Mary, and we also request that you keep the comments to under 3 minutes if possible. This will be first privilege, and there's a second when we get to the end of the meeting.
I can keep track on my phone.
All right, thank you. Go ahead. Just go up here, please. Thank you.
I'm Martina Degnan. I live at 122 Shelley Hill Road. And this is about, I didn't have a lot of, it didn't really sink in yet. I asked Wendy to send me the new proposal for the local law on ADUs.
It's right here, Martina.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yes.
Well, I just read it really quickly today, but in it, it says, special use permit review and approval shall be required in accordance with the procedure and requirements established within Article 7 of this chapter for an accessory dwelling unit in accordance with other things here. Accessory dwelling units in accordance with another 164-19.5 shall be permitted accessory use to the principal single-family residential use in the Hunts Lake zoning district. So my question to that is, why is an ADU okay for that zoning district where, and what happens to other rural areas, which is not in here? And it doesn't seem like it's an equitable application of the law, that some property owners have a more favorable, I don't know what the word would be. I'm trying to say it favors one group of property owners over another. And I also wanted to know, in it, it says that an ADU, that people can build an ADU up to 1,800 square feet. How did you get that number? And in low-density areas like where I live, setbacks aren't particularly clear. And what does that mean for people in other areas, in other zones within Stanfordville? So, I guess I want to protect my natural resources, and I'm concerned about the size of ADUs. I'm concerned about, I think a special permit is important to have, and I'm concerned about, I said setbacks, our natural resources and how some of this came to be. And that's basically all I have to say, I think. I think that some of this, it has to be, you have to be kind of, you have to be sensitive to the environment as well. So I guess that's all I have to say about it. I'm just concerned, and I just want to know why some people are granted special permits and other people are not. That's all.
That is signed, by the way. So.
Okay, all right, I'm finished.
I can try
Okay,
to.
and I could, when the local law comes up for introduction, I could address some of those
Okay.
comments, questions.
Great, okay, we'll do that. Yeah, we typically don't address the comments in the privilege of floor, but it's also a small audience, and so I don't mind doing it if folks will entertain it for a minute. So,
Yeah, no.
well, I'll let Bob talk about the zoning districts. The zoning districts are already without the ADUs. They also have special cases that they can and can't be used. But regarding the size, so I actually went back to the 1950s as far as the house size for an average family in the United States and looked at all kinds of different variations. New York State is generally in the lower end of the square footage for houses for families. So that number is based off of that data over the last, 70 years worth of square footage increases. So the intent is that if we keep it too small, you're talking about maybe a single person or a couple. And the intent is to try and encourage families. And so in order to accomplish that, there needs to be at least enough room for a master and potentially 2 bedrooms. So that's where that size comes up. And we talked about it a lot. It was not an easy number to arrive at. So it wasn't just an arbitrary selection. And I don't know, there was one other point. Oh, the other point that I wanted to make was around the environment. So that, I would say, is under the umbrella of the comprehensive plan. So everything that the town board should be doing should take that into account. So every action that we have should at least have some kind of environmental consideration, because that's one of the key components of the comprehensive plan, is to try and maintain the agricultural and the the landscaping of the town, that basically the nature of the town is a characteristic of the town that we want to continue to maintain. So we would not want to move in a direction that goes against that effort.
But it's also a balance, because the comprehensive plan speaks about adding housing that's affordable, both for younger people and for seniors. So it is a balance.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of debate, you know, and I know this is an agenda topic right now, but there's been a lot of debate between us and the zoning commission initially came out with, you know, a as-of-right ADU blanket. And so as a town board, we went back and did a lot of back and forth in terms of hearing, and we'll have a public hearing on this next month where we'll get more feedback on it. But we've gone back and forth internally a lot on, one, what's the objective? What do we want to do? And you'll see that in the local law. The objective is that we increase our rental, our ability to offer long-term rentals, and we make, I don't know the wording, but there's several objectives within here. Increase the supply of rental housing in the town, encourage the creation of alternative long-term housing that may meet the needs of persons seeking a smaller dwelling unit, and encourage a more efficient use of existing housing stock. We're not, I don't think we're unique in this, and I don't know if you were at the last meeting, but I shared some statistics on the trend of rental housing in our area, and it's gone down. We've had lots of people move out, and we all understand, you know, the concerns around the environment and things like that. It was the recommendation from the zoning commission that we do it as of right. It is something that we discussed at length. Within the local law, we're continuing to make it as of right. There is a special use permit required for the Upton Lake district, not the Hunts Lake district, because that's not one where they've had concerns around things like water quality and sewage. Upton Lake has had concerns around those specific issues. So we made that a special use permit consideration, or its own subset. But all of the other districts within Stanford are as of right ADU eligible.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Then why, if it's a special use permit, why is it only in one area? That was my comment.
Yes, when we get to that part of the agenda, that's what Bob will speak on.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
All right. Anyone else for privilege of the floor?
Okay.
My name is Sandra Gilsey. I've been in front of you before. I'd like to say this is one of the few times I've been able to hear you all speak. And usually I sit back there and say to somebody, what did they say? So I thank you for that. My other comment, just in regard to the special use permit, at one of the board meetings, the chairperson of the planning committee, I believe, stood up and he expressed his concerns, and it was sort of, let's make it as simple as possible. And everything he said, I agreed with, and I don't know if I clap for him or not, but I certainly would clap for him, because I think sometimes things get too confused and complicated. That's all. Thank you for speaking up.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sandra.
Thank you.
Let me take a copy of your material.
Yeah.
Sure, of course.
Oh, thank you.
Anyone else? No? Okay. With that, then I make a motion to open the public hearing for the proposed local law number 2, which is a local law imposing a temporary moratorium on battery energy storage systems and wind energy conversion systems.
Second. Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Before we hear anyone from the public, Bob, would you mind doing a summation of what's changed?
Sure. This is simply a moratorium. It will. It's basically intended to buy some time for the town and the zoning commission to review what laws ought to apply to battery storage systems and wind energy conversion systems. And they're defined. This is primarily oriented towards commercial operations for energy storage. It does not, this is the second introduction, or this is the second version of this law that was introduced. We reintroduced it to specifically exclude and specifically clarify that this law does not cover car batteries, electric vehicles, electric vehicle recharging systems, or any battery system that is attached to a single-family residence for domestic energy use. And the moratorium is provided for a 12-month period within which the town is required to give consideration to what regulation they want to have on this, in this field, if any, and to be able to adopt a law and to cover it. And that's basically it.
Thanks, Bob. And on the last note, there are already plans for the board, or members of the board, a member of the planning board, to meet with individuals in the community on this topic. So we're already getting a start on that. So with that, I open it up to anyone to speak on the local law. This is local law number 2. We haven't, local law number 3 is the one that he's going to give. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Margaret. Yeah. Okay.
Hi, Rita Mary. Margaret Fallon, 100 Sister Sill Road. Does it include an agricultural exemption?
I don't think we have, I don't think, no, not expressly, no. Is that an issue?
Well, how does it say, like, when you say, like, where does it say, like, yes, some agricultural places have not large battery storage, but they store some batteries.
Okay.
What do they use the batteries for?
Like, when you would take them out of the tractors, and so you have different, like, so not all.
Oh, the vehicle batteries would be.
Yeah, they're excluded. Yeah.
Tractors.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are excluded.
None.
Yeah.
Vehicle
batteries are
I thought you were going to bring up a wind energy system.
No,
I
no, no, no.
really, like, where are they hiding?
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right.
I have, can I ask a question?
Of course, yeah.
Parishioner 122 Shelly Hill Road. Bob, is this in response to an application, or is this in anticipation of this coming our way?
Frankly, I don't know.
There was an inquiry on it.
There was an inquiry.
There was an inquiry to the town board, and we said, and the zoning commission said, we don't have enough information to do anything.
I got it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's sort of in parallel with an inquiry and getting in front of it.
And there has been another inquiry since.
Okay.
Really?
No, that was the solar.
No, that was solar.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Too many energy sources.
I know, well, that's where I got
That's where I-
confused.
I know, we
They
both-
might, solar could have battery storage too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because in the Association of Town newsletter last month, there was a case study on a town that did put in wind energy storage systems in place, and it was a long road for them, but it was something that they felt was advantageous to them at the time. But yeah, it's just interesting to see how other towns are sort of getting in front of it.
Sure, navigating that.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
If there are no comments, you could close the hearing.
Yeah.
and-
That's what I was gonna do.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. I was gonna make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so moving on, then I make a motion to passed Resolution 11B of 2024, which is it's the local law number 2, enacting a temporary moratorium on battery energy storage systems and wind energy conversion systems. There's a second, I'll read the law.
Second.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna.
Second?
Yeah, and I'm gonna read the first portion of it. So at the meeting of the town board of the town of Stanford, held at the town of Stanford Town Hall on the 14th day of November 2024 at 7 p.m. or 10 of 10. Town Deputy Supervisor Nathan LaVirtue called the meeting to order, and he was seconded by Councilperson Julia Descoto. Moved the following resolution to enact local law to be known as Local Law Number 2 of 2024, entitled "A Local Law Imposing a Temporary Moratorium on Battery Energy Storage Systems and Wind Energy Conversion Systems," as follows. Whereas the following local law was introduced as proposed local law number 2 of 2024 by resolution number 10D, adopted at a meeting of the town board held on October 10th, 2024. And whereas at said meeting, the town board declared that the enactment of this proposed local law imposing a temporary moratorium is a type 2 action pursuant to the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act and is therefore exempt from any environmental review under seeker. And whereas the proposed local law was referred to the Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development for an advisory opinion pursuant to the New York General Municipal Law 239-M, and the Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development provided its response without comment, stating it was a matter of local concern. And whereas the proposed local law was referred to the Town of Stanford Planning Board for report and recommendation pursuant to section 164-56 of the Town of Stanford Town Code, and the Planning Board responded that it has no comment. And whereas a properly noticed public hearing was held before the Town Board during the meeting of November 14th, 2024 on this local law, now therefore this local law will be enacted by the Town Board.
Wendy Burton, absent. Nathan LaVirtue.
Yes.
Julia Dakota.
Yes.
Eric Ames.
Yes.
Theodore Eagleson Sukor.
Eagleson, yes.
Thank you. Right. Margaret, invite you up to the podium again.
Sure. Well, I just want to thank the board and Wendy for continuing this tradition of honoring local community members who've recently passed away. I just think it's just wonderful, and it really honors the spirit of the town. So I'm speaking on behalf of Barry Haydes. I was lucky enough to serve with Barry for 5 years on the Conservation Advisory Commission, but Barry's service goes back decades. He just had a passion for protecting the local special places like the Whitlock Preserve, the Gary Lovett Wildlife Preserve. He also he loved all of nature, but he really had a passion for butterflies and moths, and he educated countless people throughout the area through lectures and talks and walks that he gave in the area. He was also famous for helping out friends and neighbors. At our last CAC meeting, people were sharing stories, stories of him helping to help dig out a septic system, rebuild a small engine, just constantly being generous to those around him. And another example of a story that someone told, which I think really epitomizes Barry, he used to have these huge holiday parties where he would invite, friends, but also people who maybe didn't have a place to go that year. And there would be bonfires, but there would also be beautiful music, as Barry was just a wonderful musician. Some people in town, even if they didn't know Barry by name, would probably recognize him because he was a feature at our community days. And he was a big draw to our CAC table. So we would be across from Rita Mary in the Garden Club, and they would have beautiful mums and their bulbs. And Barry would bring which at first did not look so beautiful. He would bring in these buckets. He would spend a lot of time going around the area, and he would painstakingly select these different plants to educate people. And at first glance, I think people would go by and think they were weeds. And Barry would, there were the good guys and the bad guys, and he would separate them out into what are the native plants that we want to encourage in our yards and in our fields and in our community. And then there would be the bad guys, the invasives, that we want to weed. And so people would come up all day long and be like, what is this thing? I do have this in my yard. And Barry would help people understand what was important about them. And Barry was at our last community day in September, which was only a few weeks before he passed. And when he was arranging these plants, and again, like he just knew like every variety of every species, and I was very proud that I could like identify, oh, that's goldenrod, and then Barry, just very generously, again, that's just the word for Barry. He said, well, you know that there are over 50 different varieties of goldenrod that you can find here in Stanfordville. And he pointed out differences in the flower and the stem and the leaf, and this, plant that I'd thought of as like a weed, this simple thing. He just opened my eyes to this everyday beauty, and all throughout the fall when I would be in my yard, on the road, and after he passed, like it just always made me think of him. And I think he did that for so many people on so many different levels, just helping us see the beauty that's all around us in our backyard. So Barry was incredibly smart, incredibly kind and generous. He had a wicked sense of humor, and we were lucky that we had him in our community. So thank you again.
Thanks, Margaret.
Thank you, Margaret. So Ed is not here. So we are going to skip number 2, and I guess we'll move that potentially to next month. So at this time, we're going to reintroduce proposed local law number 3, which is around accessory dwelling units. This will be resolution 11B. Do you want to introduce it? And then...
Sure.
Okay. Then we can talk about the hearing.
Yeah. So just read this whole part.
I don't think you need to read the whole thing.
Okay.
I
Not
think
the
we
whole
were-
thing, but.
No, yeah.
Do they
Just-
really have the same resolution numbers? Right? Wouldn't it be different?
Sorry, this will be 11C.
11C.
Yes. Yep.
So I'll read the resolution, 11C, this will be local law number 3. At a meeting of the town board of the town of Stanford, held at the town of Stanford Town Hall on the 14th day of November, 2024 at 7 p.m., Town Deputy Supervisor Nathan Labertu called the meeting to order, and he seconded,
I'll make a motion to reintroduce the proposed local law.
I'll
There you go.
second it.
There you go.
And seconded by Councilperson Dakota, move the following resolutions. Whereas a local law to amend the town zoning and subdivision codes to provide for accessory dwelling units in all districts known as proposed local law number 2, this is number 3, excuse me, of 2024, was introduced at the meeting of the town board held on June 13th, 2024.
Well, that was the original.
Oh,
Yeah,
you're
it
right,
was number
sorry,
2.
you're right. Number 2 was introduced at the meeting of the town board held on June 13th, 2024, and whereas at the June 13th, 2024 meeting, and in connection with the proposed local law, the town board declared itself lead agency for purposes of seeker for this type 1 action, and whereas at the June 13th, 2024 meeting, and in connection with the proposed local law, the town board adopted and authorized circulation of a copy of Part 1 of the full EAF pursuant to the requirements set forth in 6 NYCRR Part 617, and whereas the proposed local law with Part 1 of the full EAF was referred to the Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development for an advisory opinion pursuant to New York General Municipal Law 239-M, and the Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development provided its response without comment. stating it was a matter of local concern, and whereas the proposed local law with Part 1 of the full EAF was referred to the Stanford Planning Board for its recommendation pursuant to Section 164-56 of the Town Code, and no comment was received from the Planning Board, and whereas a properly noticed public hearing was held before the Town Board during the meeting on August 8th, 2024, on the proposed local law. And whereas various comments from the public pertaining to the proposed local law were heard at the above referenced August 8th, 2024 meeting, and whereas minor revisions to the proposed local law were made pursuant to those comments, and whereas the proposed local law to amend the town zoning code to provide for accessory dwelling units in all districts as revised is now reintroduced pursuant to New York State Municipal Home Rule Law, Section 20, and eventual adoption pursuant to Chapter 164, Article 11 of the Town Code, and Sections 264 and 265 of the New York State Town Law. Now therefore be resolved that following proposed local law as revised is hereby reintroduced to be known now as proposed local law number 3 of 2024, entitled A Local Law Amending Chapters 140 and 164 of the Town Code to allow accessory dwelling units in all zoning districts, to be read as follows. Bob, do you want to go through the changes?
Yes. So this proposal will make accessory dwelling units an as-of-right use as an accessory to single-family residences in all zones, with the sole exception that in the Huns Lake, our LR zone, a special use permit will be,
Upton Lake.
It's up
or
to,
Upton Lake, Upton Lake, I'm sorry, excuse me, will be required for the Upton Lake or LR zone. The other change, another change is that the size limitation has been imposed on ADUs of 1,800 square feet. And this was in response to comments saying that someone could build a mega mansion accessory dwelling unit. And we want to emphasize the importance of this sort of technique for hopefully increasing opportunities for affordable housing and alternative housing choices. With regard to variances and setbacks, the ADUs may be in an existing structure, in an existing residence, or they may be in a detached structure, and the detached structure would be subject to the setbacks for an accessory use, which is less than the normal setbacks. I think it's like 20 feet. As with other setback type of area restrictions, dimensional restrictions, variances may be applied for through the ZBA. But the thought is that the 1,800 square footage limitation would not be eligible for variances if you wanted to exceed that. But in those cases, this law would not affect the existing laws that deal with duplexes and two-family residences, guest cottages, and accessory apartments, which currently exist, and which, in the case of accessory apartments and guest cottages, they are subject to special permit, and so if someone had wanted to have a larger structure, they could maybe qualify it as a guest cottage or an accessory apartment if it qualifies under those sections, and apply for a special permit. So that, by doing that, that greatly simplifies this law. And is there anything else that I should cover?
No, is there any questions for anyone?
That's it.
Okay.
So the resolution also provides that this would be referred again to the Stanford Planning Board for its recommendation, and also to County Planning and Development, as the previous version had been, and the town board is ratifying and confirming the long form EAF that you approved previously in support of this.
All right. The one thing that I would add before we go to a vote is just, for the record, just want to reread the intentions behind this, and they're short. There's 3 bullets. It's increase the supply of rental housing in the town, encourage the creations of alternative long-term housing that may meet the needs of persons seeking a smaller dwelling unit, encourage a more efficient use of existing housing stock. On a local, county, state, national level, we know that housing is a topic of discussion and trying to provide that equitably. And this is, a town of our size, this is a small act that we can take towards that. So.
I think this could be, we also need to schedule a public hearing
Yes,
on this.
that was, yeah.
And I think it could be scheduled for December.
December 12th, yeah. That's
I
when we
would
want to
expect
schedule
the
it.
county to be prompt in its review, and the planning board meets at the end of the month,
Next week.
later this month, I
Yeah.
guess.
Next week,
The 20th.
Next week.
20th.
You
20th.
meet early? Yes.
Yeah, the meeting early because of Thanksgiving.
So we
Yeah, so
should, in referring this, we should be sure that they are asked to take this up.
And a public notice
Yeah.
for the 12th.
Not rushing them, but rushing them a little bit.
So who's going to make the motion?
I did.
For the public hearing?
Oh, well, do you want to?
It's all this, it's all
It's
part of the same.
Yeah, it's all included.
It's all, we just
That's what I thought.
insert the date, and it'll all be part of the same.
So I made the motion and Julia seconded it. Excuse me.
Wendy Burton absent. Nathan LaVirtue?
Yes.
Julia Dakota?
Yes.
Eric Ames?
Yes.
Teddy Secord?
Yes.
All right.
And the public hearing date is?
The 12th.
December
December
12th. Yep. All right. Moving on, I make a motion to accept the highway bids from Superintendent Jim Myers. I believe you may not have seen them, but they were shared on Tuesday. Their bids with his recommendations on how to go about those for materials for the highway department, and I believe some of it was for equipment parts.
Can I read what he?
Yes,
what-
absolutely.
So I can get it in minutes.
Yes.
He recommends the town accepts all bids and awards to the lowest apparent bidder and reserves the right to utilize the next lowest bidders in case the awarded a low bidder cannot meet quality or quantity requirements of the materials they were bid on.
Thank you.
We have a second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so I have an interesting one here. So I am making a motion for appointing a marriage officer for the town of Stanford. So as deputy supervisor, I'm making a motion to appoint Wendy Burton as a marriage officer for the town of Stanford pursuant to Article 3, Section 11C of the New York State Domestic Relations Law for a term of 2 years, excuse me, and to the end of her term as town supervisor pursuant to Article 3, Section 11C of the New York State Domestic Relations Law. And that Supervisor Wendy Burton shall receive no salary for said position, however, may accept fees up to $75 per ceremony at any ceremony at which she officiates in accordance with Article 3, Section 11C of the New York State Domestic Relations Law.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Want me to do that one?
Or one of the gentlemen can read it too.
Oh, true.
So I will make a motion to accept a budget modification resolution 11A, which is an ARPF, which is the American Rescue Funds, transfer to general fund for the town hall windows.
I will second it.
Do you want to also read it, or do you want to read it?
I'll read it. Maybe you can pass it over to me, because I don't have it up right now.
You have it?
Yep, that one.
Whoop, sorry. Yep. There we go.
This one.
Yep.
Yep, on the left.
Cool. So, whereas the town board of the town of Stanford has approved the replacement of windows in the town hall building to maximize the energy-saving efficiency of the building, and whereas the town board of the town of Stanford needs to approve the transfer of funds from the American Rescue Plan Fund to cover the cost, now therefore be it resolved that the town supervisor is authorized to transfer the sum of no more than $30,000 to the general fund, and be it further resolved that the town supervisor is authorized to make the following budget amendments, which are listed here.
Thank you.
And I'd like to thank the board for getting new windows in my office that we can open. So thank you.
You know that's the number one cause of disc, people slipping discs in the United States? is
And with
opening a
my
window.
window, she
Opening
would
windows?
lose a
Yeah.
finger.
Yeah.
Closing.
Wow.
It was bad. So thank you.
You need a second?
I have one.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
You want to do roll call, or do you want to just do?
Oh, that's right, it was a resolution,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep.
Wendy Burton absent. Julia Dakota,
Yes.
Eric Ames,
Yes.
Dave LaVertue,
Yes.
Theodore Secor.
Absolutely.
All right. Make a motion to accept the minutes for October 10th and October 24th of 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I make a motion to approve the November abstracts for 2024. The general fund was $80,630.33. The highway was $33,753.88. Bengal Lights was $1,004.98, and the ambulance district was $62,500. And escrow was $728.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We do not have another.
Nope.
So we will open it up for the second privilege of the floor. Same rules apply. 3 minutes, state your name and share your address. All right. With that, does anyone make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion to adjourn. I make a motion that we adjourn this August meeting.
Second.
What's the time?
7:53.
Thank you.
Pretty
All in
good.
favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Good meeting.
Thank you.